So we are reading The Fifth Agreement by Don Miguel, and we are on page 96 of the PDF, The Dream of the Third Attention, the Master.
The dream of the second attention ends when something very important happens in our lives, something called the last judgment. This is the very last time we judge either ourselves or anybody else. It's the day we accept ourselves just the way we are, and we accept everybody else just the way they are. When the day of our last judgment comes, the war in our head is over, and the dream of the third attention begins. And it will be the end of our world, but also the beginning of our world, because we are no longer in the dream of the warriors. We are in the upper world, or what I call the dream of the masters.
So the dream of the first attention was that we are operating from the victim mentality. We were not taking responsibility for what we are undergoing and what we are experiencing. And we are in the blame game. We are constantly blaming people. We are constantly blaming circumstances for whatever we are experiencing. The dream of the second attention was of the warriors, where we are now starting to operate with awareness. So we are aware as to what is going on. We've started taking responsibility, but we are still judging others. We are still making comparisons. We are still believing that we are superior to the other person. So that's the attention of the warrior. And now we are coming to the attention of the masters. And what he's saying over here is that the day we stop making judgments on anyone and we start accepting things as they are for what they are, we shift our state of conscious awareness to the next stage, which is the attention of the masters.
The masters are former warriors. They have won their personal war and they are at peace. The dream of the masters is a dream of truth, a dream of respect, a dream full of love and joy. It's the playground of life. It's what we are meant to live, and only awareness can take us to that place.
So again, when we are warriors, we are still, there is some selfishness involved. There is some kind of agenda involved in the way that we are living. Once the warrior has conquered their personal agendas, that's when they come into the dream of the masters. In the dream of the masters, it's full of joy. It is full of love. It is full of appreciation. It is full of gratitude. It is not, we are not in any kind of judgments are not being made. So everyone is living in a state of love. Now, when we look at it from the David Hawkins levels of consciousness, I would say that this would be somewhere above 500. So love and above.
Many religions talk about the last judgment as if it's a punishment for sinners. They describe it as the day when God comes and judges us and destroys all the sinners. This isn't true. The Last Judgment is a card in the tarot, which is an ancient mythology from Egypt. When the mystery schools talk about the Last Judgment, we can hardly wait for that day, because it's the day when the dead come out of their grave, which means we resurrect. It's the day when we recover awareness and awaken from the dream of the underworld. It's the day when we are no longer afraid to be alive again. This is when we come back to our real state, our divine self, where we feel a communion of love with everything in existence.
So again, the judgment day, right? It's not something that people who are going into expanded states of consciousness experience at all. There is no one judging us over there. We go through a life review where we understand that, okay, this was the agenda that I came into this life with, whether I have actually accomplished that agenda or not, right? Now, how are we going to judge that? How are we going to look at where what we accomplished and what we did not is by the fact that we are more aware than when we are living this life, right? So over here, he clearly says that it is the day that we recover awareness and awaken from the dream of the underworld. So you can consider the life that we are living as the underworld, and we are not consciously aware of what we actually are. So when we go into those expanded states, when we transcend this physical body, we go into that state of consciousness which is much more aware than the state of consciousness in which we exist in this 3D reality or this earth life existence that we are living in. And from that state of consciousness, we observe whether we did fulfill what we had programmed or what we had planned to achieve in the life or the earth life that we had just undergone, right? And that is our true existence. That is the essence of where we are, because we are a downgrade. So we always draw this symbol in the workshops that when we are in those expanded states, our awareness is so much. When we come here, it becomes so much. What everything that we are doing is to expand our awareness. When we transcend here, we again go back to that state of awareness where we started from. So basically, the agenda is to operate out of awareness. The more aware we become, the more conscious we become.
The resurrection is a wonderful concept from mystery schools all around the world. Once you have the awareness that almost everything you learned through symbols is not the truth, the only thing left is just to enjoy life. And that's the resurrection.
So again, basically in the first few chapters, we had said that whatever we are experiencing here, we are labeling the experience, right? Now, basically that labeling is a false labeling, because that label which denotes something to us is not the true essence of what we have labeled. Because when someone else is looking at the same thing and is not aware of the label that we've given, they will observe that thing as something totally different than what we have, the concept of that thing that we get because of the label that we have given us. So the moment we start transcend the labeling business, the symbology, we can actually start living truly. We can start living with freedom. And that is what we have come here to actually achieve.
When you give meaning to everything through symbols, your attention is dispersed on many things at once. When you take away the meaning from everything, you are in communion and you become the whole thing to yourself.
So as soon as we label something, right, we have isolated it, we have separated it from us. But when we don't label, we are one. Everything is us and we are everything. So we get into concept of oneness and wholeness.
You become the only living being that exists. There's no difference between you and any star in the sky or you and any rock in the desert. Everything in existence is part of the only living being in existence. When you experience this truth, even for a moment, the whole structure of your belief system disappears, and you are in that wonderful dream of heaven.
So basically transcending duality. The moment we transcend duality, we transcend Maya, because Maya is what creates duality. That distinction between you and me, the duster and me, the table and me. When we transcend duality, then everything becomes me, right? And that is when you experience that oneness, it's very difficult to go back to that other state of consciousness where we operate from. Again, from practical experience, I'm saying that everything has life and everything interconnects with everything else. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Avatar. This is what they were talking about in Avatar, where everything is connected. Aiva, they were calling it. And Aiva responds, right? All the trees, all the animals, all the plants, insects, the birds, the bees, everything is interrelated and interconnected. You cannot separate anything from the other thing, right? And then when we go into wholeness, naturally the distinctions that we have created through our belief systems collapse. The belief system are no longer valid. So we go into oneness.
Today can be a day just like every other day, or today can be a day of celebration, the day of your resurrection, the day that you change your world by coming back to life. It can be the day for the real you to come out of that grave of believing that you are what you think you are and become what you really are.
So again, most of us, rather all of us, I would say, are operating from the small guy. In the workshops, we keep talking about the small guy and the big guy. We are constantly operating from the ego self, that self which creates the distinctions. The moment we transcend that small guy and start connecting with the bigger guy, then we automatically start connecting with that wholeness, that oneness, which you actually are. But when we are operating from here, we think we know what we are, but this is what we truly are, the big guy.
Can you please pause the recording? In the dream of the third attention, you finally have the awareness of what you are, but not with words. And because there are no words to explain what you are, you go back into peace, the place where you don't need to use words to know what you are. This is what the masters in the esoteric philosophies would reveal to their apprentices. The highest point you can reach is when you go beyond symbols and become one with life, with God.
So again, when you are in awareness, right, the symbols don't matter. You transcend the symbolism. And once you transcend the symbolism, then you can connect with your true self. Just 1 second.
Ancient religions claim that nobody can say the name of God, and it's absolutely true because there is no symbol to describe God. The only way to know God is to be God. When you become God, you say, "Oh, that's why I could not learn the symbol." The truth is that we don't know the name of the one who created us. The word God is just a symbol that represents what really exists. And I resist this word because it's a symbol that has become so distorted. If we use symbols to describe God, we need to agree on the meaning of the symbols and then what point of view are we using. There are billions of different points of view. As an artist, I do my best to paint God with words, and it's the only thing I can offer. A picture of God from my personal point of view. Whatever I say, of course, is just a story that's only the truth for me. And maybe this will make sense to you, and maybe it won't. But at least you will have an idea of my personal point of view.
So again, everyone has a different description of God, right? All religions have a different description. Even in the Hindu culture, we have so many Devi Devtas, right? So each one is a symbol. It represents something. And everyone's representation of that will be different. So naturally, we are all looking at the word God with a different connotation and a different point of view.
The dream of the masters is a little difficult to explain because the real teaching is not with words, it's with the presence. If you could feel the presence of a master, you would learn much more than you can from words.
So again, this is very important, right? The presence is what makes the information transcend. So there was this story where two masters, they met each other. And while they were sitting together, there were no words, there was only silence. And all communication happened in that silence. Likewise, whenever you go to a discourse or something and you're really connected with the discourse, you will find that whatever your question is gets automatically answered in the discourse. The reason is that words are not important. The intent, the presence is what is more important than the words.
Words can't express even a tiny bit of the experience, but if you use your imagination, words can take you to the place where you can have the experience for yourself. And this is my intention right now, for you to expand your awareness to the point where you can perceive what you really are, where you can feel what you really are.
So again, as we keep saying in awareness, one side is the knowledge, the information, and the other side is the experience. So the knowledge comes from the words, right? But the real essence of whatever we really need for growth comes from the experience. So the words can definitely help us have a experience, or it can take us to the direction of that experience to understand that experience that we are having.
Instead of using words, perhaps a better way is to put you face to face with God so you can see God. And if I show you God face to face, what you are going to see is yourself. Believe it or don't believe it, but you will see yourself because you are the manifestation of God. And if you could see what's moving your body, then you would see the real God. Look at your own hand. Move your fingers. The force that moves your fingers is what the Toltec call intent, or what I call life, the infinite or God.
So again, we are built in the form of God. So we are technically God. Now, when we see ourselves in the mirror, the true essence of ourselves, there is no distinction with God. And ultimately, who is running everything around us, including our bodies? We think that we run our bodies, but it's a given fact, right? That we hardly control, say, 5% of whatever is happening in our body system. We can't control it. It is being controlled by something else. What is that intelligence that makes everything run? What is it that is the basis of everything that is happening around us? What is the force that is manifesting things? How do things work? Right? It's actually a force which is beyond us, right? And that force you could call intent. What he's saying is intent. And that intent is what life is all about. It is connected with the infinite, and that is what we call or term as God, something that is infinite.
Intent is the only living being that exists, and it's that force that is moving everything. You are not the fingers, you are the force that is moving them. The fingers obey you. You can give whatever explanation you want. Oh, my brain, my nerves. But if you go for the truth, the force that moves your fingers is the same force that makes you dream, is the same force that opens a flower, or moves the wind, or creates a tornado, or makes the stars move throughout the universe, or makes electrons move around atoms. There is only one living being, and you are that being. You are that force that manifests itself in infinite ways throughout all the universes.
So again, over here, you're talking about consciousness, right? Consciousness is what moves things. Consciousness is what makes us aware. And that thing that makes us aware is what God is all about.
The first manifestation of that force is light or energy, which is the same thing, and everything is created through this energy. Scientists know that everything is made of energy, and since there is only one force in the universe that creates this energy, at this point, science and religion come together, and we can understand that we are God because we are light. That is what we are. That is what everything is. In billions and billions of different frequencies or manifestations of light. And together, all the different frequencies create only one light.
So they did this experiment where they had a pitch dark. I mean, there was no light inside that chamber, and they had a a very sensitive piece of equipment that could detect light. And when a person was put into the chamber, human being was put into the chamber, it detected light, right? So we are constantly emitting light in the form of biophotons. Also, when we go into expanded states, when you really go into those states, when you perceive yourself or you perceive other entities, you literally perceive balls of light. So at the end of the day, all of us are just light. When you look at it from the physics point of view, everything is made out of the atom, right? The atom is again made out of the neutron, electron, and proton. But what is happening? The electron can be in multiple places at the same time, and the physical mass in an atom is just the neutron and proton. The electron keeps moving around and shuttling around, right? So the mass, physical mass in an atom is very, 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 it's like 0.0000001%. The rest of it is all energy. It is all light, right? So we are actually manifestations of light which has slowed down, you could say.
Intent is the force that creates the light, and we can say that light is the messenger of intent because it carries the message of light that goes everywhere. Light has all the information to create everything in existence, including any kind of life humans, monkeys, dogs, trees, anything. All species of life on planet Earth are created from a specific ray or frequency of light that scientists call DNA. And the difference between the DNA itself may be minimal, but in the manifestation, it could be the difference between a human and a monkey, or a human and a jaguar, or a human and a tree.
So when we look at DNA, there is not much difference between the DNA of a human being and the DNA of a monkey, right? But what is the implication of that difference is what that frequency of light that we are talking about.
Light has many properties. It's alive, it's a living being, and it's extremely intelligent. It's creating all of the time, it's transforming all of the time, and it cannot be destroyed. Light is everywhere, and everything is full of light. But we cannot see light unless it's reflected by matter. If we send an object into space from planet Earth, we see the object because it is reflecting light. There are no empty spaces between the stars, between the galaxies, between all the universes, which means all the universes are connected.
So again, we thought previously that the outer space is a vacuum, but it is not a vacuum. It is filled with energy. It is actually filled with light. And one kern of that particular energy can power the entire earth, all our power stations for decades, right? I don't remember the exact term of what they're calling it, but I think they call it the zero field or something like that. But they found that the entire universe is filled with energy. It is not empty. There's no vacuum actually.
You are a whole universe. The earth is another universe. The sun and all the planets around the sun are another universe. All the solar systems together create another universe, and we can keep going and going until we see only one living being made by billions and billions of different living beings.
So again, in our body, there are many, microorganisms who are living. They are living inside our world. We may think this. Now you see a city. The city is again, many of us are living in a city. Then you see a country. Then you see a continent, right? Likewise. So everything is interrelated, interconnected. You have then the solar system. Then you have the Milky Way. Then you have the galaxies. Then you have all the galaxies. Everything is interrelated and interconnected, right? Nothing is away from anything else, right? So the whole we ourselves are a part of that universal consciousness, that universal awareness. We are a part of the whole. So it's like the microorganisms who are living within us We are like those microorganisms living on the planet Earth, and so on and so forth.
Every living being is protected by the force that we call soul. The soul is the force that puts an entire universe together and recognizes the totality of that being. The soul makes matter impenetrable, which means it creates what looks like a division between beings. The soul gives shape to everything. Without this force, there would be no difference between you and a flower or a fish or a bird. Your soul was born at the moment of your conception, and it recognizes every element of itself, every molecule, every cell, every organ of your being. Your soul recognizes everything that belongs to your universe, and it rejects everything that doesn't belong to it.
So there's this process that is given in Bruce Moyne's book about conscious awareness, right? So he says that first we had only one consciousness, that was that Godhead, or that Brahman, you could call it. That Brahman wanted to experience itself. So if it wanted to experience itself, since it knew everything and it was everything, it could not experience itself. So it created something called curiosity. Now, curiosity was different from Brahman, so it could experience certain things. Now, because of that, now curiosity found there's too much to experience, so it created more sub curiosities and brought it down, right? So now what happened? What does it look like? Everything is dividing and creating a different aspect of itself. So it is creating individuals. It is creating individuality. And that is what Maya is all about. Now, curiosity 1 is different from curiosity 2. Ultimately, they are coming from the same Godhead, so they are the same. But because of that conscious awareness, or over here he is calling it the soul, it is creating two different entities, right? And because of that, you recognize as yourself what you are consciously aware of, but ultimately we are one, which is what he was talking about in the previous paragraphs. Having said that, that individuality comes in when the soul comes into the field. Ultimately, when you look at conception also, when the ovum and the sperm are fertilizing, there's a spark of light, and this has been seen. There's a spark of light which germinates into life. So that spark of light is when the soul actually comes into the fertilized egg.
In the dream of the third attention, you are aware that your body is a whole universe made by billions of living beings, made by atoms, made by molecules, made by cells, made by tissues, made by organs, made by systems, until the whole universe is one. And from the point of view of the mind, it looks like there's only one point of view, the one behind your eyes. But if you go deep into awareness, you find that every atom in your body has a personal point of view because every atom is alive. Every atom is an entire universe. It's nothing but a miniature solar system with stars and planets. What every universe has in common is that each one of them is alive with the total power of the infinite.
So again, everything around us is alive, right? Every atom also has conscious awareness. Every cell in our body has conscious awareness. It is a universe in itself. But again, we are all a part of that infinite, right? So that connection is there, but the individuality in the physical existence is also there.
You, that force, are alive. You are total power. You are truth. You are real. Everything else, including everything you know through symbols, is not truth. It's not real. It's an illusion and it's beautiful. Light is not just intelligent, it has memory. It creates an image of itself. It creates the whole world of illusion that becomes your mind, the way you dream. Your dreams are not matter, they are a reflection of matter, and that reflection exists in the matter that we call the brain. The brain is nothing but a mirror. As we said before, if you look inside a mirror, you are seeing your own mind, your own dream.
So again, The brain is a reflection of what we truly are. What is it that we are? All our memories, all our experiences are a reflection, is just a reflection at the end of the day, right? So when we are creating an image of ourselves using our memories, but that is a false image ultimately. It's only a reflection. It is not the truth.
The first time you open your eyes, you start to perceive light, and light becomes your teacher. Light projects information into your eyes that you don't understand, but you were made to perceive light, to become one with light, because light is your other half. And because you are light, you are always creating and always transforming and always evolving. Light goes directly into your brain and rearranges your brain in order to modify you, virtual reality, to make you a better reflection of itself. When light is modifying your brain, the brain by itself is modifying God's factory, the DNA, for the next possible human being that can come from you.
So we are constantly evolving, right? And the reflection of what we are experiencing is what causes that evolution to take place. And the reflection comes into our being in the form of light, right? If the light wasn't there, we wouldn't be perceiving anything, literally.
And just as your body has many different organs, brain, heart, lungs, liver, stomach, skin, that all together create you, a totality. Every organ in your body is made by different kinds of cells that create that organ. Do the cells know that together all of the cells are only one living being, which means you? Do we humans know that together all of the humans are only one living being, which means humanity?
So if you see a shoal of fish, right? There are shoal of fish which act in synchronicity or in coherence with each other. The shoal of fish may be 1 or 10 kilometers long in the ocean. And if one in one end, one fish turns, immediately all the fish turn and move in the other direction. So like that, every cell in our body is alive. There's no distinction between the cell in our skin and the cell which is there in the liver, but they are performing different tasks. So at an individual level, the cell is conscious and aware of itself, but it is not aware of itself in the form of the living being that we are, right? So we are conscious of our own, the whole form. We are not consciously aware of each and every cell, but each and every cell is aware of itself, but not aware of the whole. In the same way, we are not aware that we are part of that entire universal consciousness. And that's the game that we are playing, to become aware of that that entire universal consciousness.
You are surrounded by billions of humans just like you. They were programmed to be human. Male or female, you recognize them. You know they are humans like you. You know. But perhaps what you don't know is that we humans are an organ of the beautiful planet Earth. Planet Earth is alive. It's a living being, and the entire humanity works for the planet as an organ of that living being. The forests are another organ, the atmosphere is another organ, every species is another organ, and we all work together to create an equilibrium that is the metabolism of planet Earth.
So absolutely, right? Like we have a stomach, we have a liver, we have a large intestine, small intestine, kidneys. All these are organs which are running and a part of the entire system that we call a human being. Likewise, we are a part of the organs or the existence in the world. The plants are a different organ, all the animal species are a different organ, and so on and so forth.
All of humanity is only one living being, and this is no longer a theory. We humans live together. We have the same kind of body, we have the same kind of mind, we have the same needs. We create all those symbols to understand one another. Male or female, victims, warriors, or masters, we are all the same. No human is better or worse than any other human. No human is better or worse than anything that exists throughout the universe.
So again, there's no comparison here, right? Someone may be slightly more evolved than the other person, but the potential for evolution lies in every and each thing that is around us. Even the mineral kingdoms, right? Each mineral is also evolving. And this is something that they talk in Tantra, right? You have the conscious awareness of a mineral, then you have it of a plant, then you have it of the insect, then you have it the animal, then you have it of the human, and then you have other evolutions which are there beyond the human also, right? So every and each species has its own intelligence, but it is part of the whole.
At the deepest level of our being, there is no difference between a human and a dog, or a human and a flea, or a fly, or a flower. We are the same. We come from the same place, and it doesn't matter where our story comes from. It doesn't matter if we are a Christian, a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Hindu. We come from the same place and we are going back to the same place.
So we come from that oneness, right? And we are going back to the oneness that is there.
The infinite creates everything in existence, and when the cycle is over, everything returns to the infinite. Of course, the body dies because the body is mortal, but you, the force, are immortal. In that force, where the mind lives, the only thing that dies are the lies. In ancient Egypt, it was said, if your heart is lighter than a feather when you die, then welcome to heaven. If your heart is heavier than a feather, you are not going to heaven. Lies cannot go back into power, but the truth returns to power because the truth is the reflection of power. It's the reflection of the infinite. The question becomes, how heavy are your lies? Is your heart burdened with anger, fear, guilt, regret?
So again, the point is of dropping the illusions. So this is what Robert Monroe talks about in the first talk in the Gateway Voyage also, is that how many illusions have you become aware of? And you can only transcend the illusions if you are conscious of them, right? If you become aware of them. So like that, all these things which put us on the left side of the grid, if you really look at this anger, fear, guilt, regret, all these things are putting us on the left side of the grid. When we start observing things and living life from the right side of the grid, that is when we start becoming lighter. Things start to flow. We become lighter than feathers. There is no judgment involved, right? We start to really live life when we start living from the right side of the grid, the resilience grid.
In the dream of the third attention, the truth has already destroyed all the lies, and the only thing that survives is the truth, which means the real you. You are that force, you are life, which is truth, and from that point, your dream becomes heaven. Your dream becomes a beautiful masterpiece of art, a beautiful masterpiece of love. This leads you to the third mastery of the Toltec, the mastery of love, or we can also call it the mastery of intent or faith. I prefer to call it the mastery of faith because it's a mastery for you to trust in yourself, which means realizing the power that you have, the power of intent, the power of life, the power of belief, the power of faith, the power of love. They're all the same power, of course. They're total power.
So again, basically, when you look at this again, all these things are taking us to the right side of the grid and taking us above 200 on the David Hawkins map of consciousness. When we start operating at higher states of consciousness, then all the lower states of consciousness, which is anger, fear, guilt, all these things actually drop off. And then we start getting into the flow. When we get into the flow, that is when the real thing starts happening. That's when the real game starts to happen. Right? I think we can stop here. It's 46. 1 second. Let me.